today. So let's review tall tales. Remember, a tale is a story. Okay, this tale, T-A-L-E, is like a story tale. Remember, the tall tale is a fictional story that stretches the truth. The characters in it have superhuman powers. It takes place during, the setting of the story takes place during a real time in history. And what makes it a tall tale is that it has lots of exaggeration. And remember, exaggeration is when you take something that's normal or small and you make it bigger than what it is. It's called an exaggeration. Okay, the tall tale that we're going to read today is called Mike Fink, a tall tale retold and illustrated by Stephen Kellogg. Now, this was interesting to me because I honestly, before I did this genre study, had never even heard of this tall tale before. But it is written and illustrated by the same author as Johnny Appleseed that we just read, so there's a text-to-text connection that I have with this story. And it is also published by HarperCollins that has given us permission to read it and record it. So Mike Fink. Since it's the same illustrator, you can kind of see that the illustrations of Johnny Appleseed are kind of similar. Here's the title page. Mike was born not far from the Allegheny Mountains. Now, there's another text-to-text connection I have. That's the same area that Johnny Appleseed is from and started planting apple orchards. Right from the start, it was clear that he was destined for a life of action. He hated being shut up indoors, and so when he was only 2 days old, he ran away from home. Now, my inner voice is telling me there's an exaggeration that we're supposed to be listening for when we tell tall tales, because can we run away at 2 days old? No. There were rumors that Mike had joined a troop of acrobatic frogs that traveled from pond to pond. You can see those frogs dancing around in the pond. Mike's grandfather came to fetch him. The whole town's talking about this grandson of mine who's been hanging out with a gang of rowdy frogs, he thundered. From now on, you'll stay home and behave like a normal infant. Once again, Mike rebelled furiously against being confined to indoors. He leaped up and down on the bed with such force that he catapulted through the roof. Again, looking for exaggerations, and I found another one. Can we jump so high that we jump through the roof and into the sky? No. On the next leap, Mike rocketed high enough to see the vast network of rivers to the west. There he spotted the keelboats and heard the crew's hearty songs. A keelboat is a type of boat that was used a long time ago, because remember, these stories happened during historical times, and it was a boat they used to go up and down the river to carry cargo or merchandise for people. Mike plummeted back into the house singing, "I'm going to be a keelboatman, cock-a-doodle-doo." Once again, Mike set off a family uproar. "Keelboatmen are ruffians, rowdies, and riff-raff," wailed his grandmother. "This new outrage will disgrace the family name forever." Mike's mother decided then and there that her son would be much happier if she raised him on the frontier. So the next morning they joined a wagon train heading west. My inner voice tells me that's another text-to-text connection between Mike and Johnny Appleseed, because remember, he kept going west and planting his orchards in the frontier as the pioneers moved west. Mike loved the freedom of wilderness life. However, the sudden death of their ox threw his mother into despair. "How would we clear the land?" she cried. "How will we plow?" "Cheer up, Mama," said Mike. "I can handle those chores." And he did. Can you see him plowing as an infant? That's an exaggeration. But Mike never stopped dreaming of becoming a keelboatman. He had heard that wrestling was their favorite sport, and it was also his. That's another text-to-text connection, because remember, Johnny Appleseed, the mountain men wanted them to wrestle, but he got them to chop down the trees and clear the land. He was not tall for his age, but he was sturdy and quick. Even when he wrestled boys much bigger and older than himself, he usually came out on top. Mike also showed an early talent for riflery. That's where they shoot rifles. He called the family gun Bang All, and he soon became such a crackerjack marksman that he could shoot the shell off of an egg. Along about the time he turned 16, he entered a local shooting match. Each entrant had 3 chances to score. Mike hit the bullseye on his first try, but his next 2 attempts left the target unmarked. One luckily hit, and 2 wild shots put you out of the running, chuckled the scorekeeper. But Mike got the last laugh when he showed him all 3 bullets lined up behind the bullseye as neatly as peas in a pod. So there, he hit the same place 3 times in a row. That's pretty good. Maybe an exaggeration a little bit. Mike's skills with a rifle landed him a job as a scout, but he was still drawn westward by the memory of those great rivers. Finally, Mike found himself face to face with Jack Carpenter, the king of the keelboatmen. Howdy, said Mike. I'm looking for a job. This river cracks pipsqueaks like peanuts, said Carpenter. Come back when you're 10 feet taller, and then we'll find out if you're strong enough to pull your share of the load. I may be short, said Mike, but I'm strong, and I'd like the chance to prove it. I'm stronger than a buffalo stampede and meaner than a rattlesnake with a bellyache, snarled Carpenter. If you can lick me, the job is yours, and so is this red feather. You've got yourself a deal, cried Mike. Cock-a-doodle-doo, let's wrestle. Carpenter charged forward like a bull. Then he hurled Mike hundreds of miles into the heart of the Rocky Mountains. That would be a long ways away from where they were in the river. So I'm going to say that's an exaggeration. And let's go back a page and talk about the keelboatmen. What happens is they float downriver. You can see what their boat kind of looks like an ark to me, but it's a boat, and then they have to, it doesn't have a motor, because remember in this time in history they didn't have motors like we have now. So they had to pull with these poles and push it back up the river. So you had to be really strong to be a keelboatman. And if you can see the red feather, the strongest man got the red feather. So that was why they were wrestling over who could have the red feather, because it meant that they were the strongest. So remember, he got hurled all the way to the Rocky Mountains. Well, that set me back a bit, admitted Mike, but I'm determined to be a keelboatman. He decided to get in shape by wrestling with grizzlies. At first, those bears rolled him onto his back before he could say Jack Carpenter. But Mike kept trying, and little by little his strength increased until he was able to hold his own. Finally, he decided to test himself by challenging Big Bart, the heavyweight champion of the Rockies. So these bears, he's wrestling with bears, which we know has to be an exaggeration because you can't wrestle with bears, but they're lifting weights, which is giving them human-like characteristics. When Mike came out on top, he knew he was ready for that keelboat job. He sprinted across the Great Plains and found Jack Carpenter. Cock-a-doodle-doo, I'm back for round 2. Let's wrestle, hollered Mike. Again, Carpenter charged like a bull, but this time, Mike met him head on. They wrestled up and down the riverbanks for several weeks. My inner voice is telling me that's an exaggeration, because could they go several weeks and wrestle and not stop for food or water or anything else? No. They wrestled up and down the riverbanks for several weeks, kicking up tidal waves and toppling trees. Finally, Carpenter found himself locked helplessly in a Rocky Mountain grizzly bear hug. I'm licked, he gasped. After the orneriness had been squeezed out of Jack Carpenter, he became downright agreeable. With Carpenter's help, Mike got the hang of navigating so quickly that the crew voted him captain. They sang and danced and celebrated all afternoon while the boat drifted lazily down the river toward New Orleans. Heading upriver was a different story. The boat had to be poled and pushed continually to prevent the powerful current from sweeping it backward. The men forged through rapids and up waterfalls, pausing occasionally to tangle with the man-eating alligators and enormous snapping turtles that laid in wait for them. That would be a hard job. I don't think I would like it. Whenever rival keelboats met, there were races on the water and games and sports on land. Men lined up by the dozens to try and win Mike's feather, but no one got the best of him. His hat began to look like a bonfire, and they called him the king of the keelboatmen. Mike loved all the rough, tumbling, and excitement, but he also loved the times when the river was silent and still. He thought that his life as a keelboatman was just about perfect, and he hoped it would never end. But then one morning, Mike saw dark clouds on the horizon. He was told that these were steamboats and that they were being sent to take over the river trade. Mike hated the shriek of their whistles and the clatter of their paddle wheels. He hated the foul-smelling smoke that fogged the river as they churned past him. So steamboats are big boats, and they have these stacks that steam comes out of, but they have a big paddle on the end that moves, that makes them go through water. Faster and larger steamboats kept arriving. They created traffic jams at the major ports that made it impossible for Mike and the other keelboat captains to unload their cargo. Now, cargo is the items like food or clothing that they have in these boats, and they're taking it from place to place, and that's what cargo is called. A showdown was sparked when a steamboat skippered by Hilton P. Blatherby shoved Mike's keelboat away from the dock. "This garbage scow is blocking river traffic and should be sunk," hollered Blatherby. Oh, the author lets us know that Blatherby is not a very nice guy, is he? "I'm king of the keelboatmen," roared Mike. "I'll fight for this dock. I'll fight for this river." "All hands prepare for naval combat," bellowed Blatherby. With whistles blowing, bells clanging, and smokestacks belching, the powerful steamboat charged forward like a rogue elephant. For a moment, Mike managed to raise the prow of his monstrous opponent, forcing its stern under the water. But then its weight overwhelmed him, and Mike and his keelboat were gone. You can see Mike at the bottom trying to push his boat up. A second later, the cold water that had rushed into the steamboat's red-hot boilers set off an enormous explosion. One of the few survivors were Captain Blatherby. He spotted Mike's hat from his lifeboat and ordered his men to row closer so he could collect the feathers. After all, he said, "Now I'm king of the keelboatmen and king of the river." Blatherby was astonished to find Mike underneath his hat. "Cock-a-doodle-doo, I'm back for round 2. Let's wrestle," he cried. Some say that Blatherby was thrown all the way to grizzly bear country, but no one knows for sure. I think that's an exaggeration. What do you think? As for Mike Fink, he still cheered from one end of the river to the other as the undefeated king of the keelboatmen. So that's the tale of Mike Fink, and it's a tall tale because it has all kinds of exaggerations. I hope you enjoyed the story. See you next time.